Chapter 20 Chapter Summary in which I take you all to church cause boy do we need it. Chapter Notes. Hey, good news, I got a beta reader. Shout out to Mirthalia for sparing y'all another typo-filled chapter. Enjoy, you sinners. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Get dunked on. Every head in the class turned towards the door at the loud entrance. Miss Césaire, I would prefer it if you didn't yell in my classroom. Sorry, Mrs. Duchamp. Aaliyah flashed a sheepish smile before her face was once again overtaken by visceral glee, turning to slam her hands down on the desk in front of Nino before continuing on in a slightly softer yell, get fucking dunked on, you owe me $20. In fact, she turned to address the rest of her classmates, crossing her arms triumphantly, half of you guys owe me $20. The room broke out in a chorus of groans, nearly a dozen teens reaching into pockets and wallets while the rest just smirked. Adrian was in the second group, leaning back with a grin as he watched Nino shove a crumpled wad of cash into Aaliyah's waiting hand. The bet had been running for about a year now. After a class-wide tangent about the nature of Ladybug and Chad Noir's relationship had nearly come to blows, the school's resident superhero expert organized a betting pool in which people could cast their votes. The ante had been $20 and nearly everyone in the school was in on it, half swearing up and down that the heroes were a couple, and half maintaining that their partnership was strictly platonic. If, by the time their class graduated, Ladybug and Chad Noir were still unconfirmed, those opposed would win. But if the news were to break that they were in fact an item, and don't think I forgot about you, Mari, Aaliyah said, elbowing the groaning girl beside her. In fact, I recall there being some mention of double or nothing. HHHHMMMM. Adrian cocked an eyebrow at that. You were confident enough to double bet that Chad Noir and Ladybug would never get together? He asked, watching Marinette give a weighty sigh as she dug around in her coin purse. Harsh. Well, it's not like they ever showed any interest in each other before now, she replied, an expression somewhere between a pout and a smile settling across her lovely features. At least Ladybug didn't, anyhow. Maybe Chad Noir won her over with his charm and good looks. Adrian suggested with a grin, the words immediately drawing a laugh from the girl. Somehow I don't think so. Besides, I'm still not fully convinced the kiss was romantic. Maybe they're just really close partners. Oh, fat chance. Aaliyah broke in, tapping away at her phone before gathering their group around it. You just try and tell me this wasn't romantic. Adrian's eyes landed on a familiar video, his grin widening as he watched Ladybug plow through the line of reporters. He had spent all of last night scouring the internet, tracking down every cell phone shot, news segment, or home video depicting the scene, and saving them to his computer. Nothing like watching your girlfriend make out with you from dozens of different angles. Damn, Ladybug's a freak. Nino chuckled as the four of them watched the superheroine slide her tongue into Chad Noir's mouth. Yeah, she is, Adrian agreed, never peeling his eyes from the screen as he and his best friend blindly bumped fists. All right, that's enough. A hand snatched at the phone, stopping the video as the two boys groaned in protest. Marinette stuffed the device back down the front of Aaliyah's shirt with a huff, her face a brilliant shade of red as she ground her teeth. Yeah, maybe that could be considered romantic, I guess, she muttered, handing her friend the money with a pout before stomping to her assigned spot. Man, you really seem torn up about this, Mari, Adrian couldn't help but note, swiveling in his seat as she settled behind him. Marinette looked at him with candor, bringing a single knuckle up to rub against her temple. Let's just say nobody's more surprised about this than me, wanna bet? Adrian thought with a gleam, catching the words before they rolled off his tongue in a languid purr. Instead he just gave a shrug, tweaking an eyebrow up in a movement mimicked by the girl before him. Not for the first time this year, Adrian silently gave thanks that she had somewhat gotten over her shyness towards him. It turned out Marinette was a blast to be around once she stopped tripping over her words or, well, just tripping in general. She was imaginative, sweet, and even downright funny sometimes, though he had yet to get her to laugh at one of his jokes. Plus French class was a lot more bearable with her company. Oh, hey wait, Adrian said suddenly, seeming to startle her from their eye contact. Isn't today your birthday? Marinette blinked a few times, a pleased blush spreading across her cheeks. Yeah, it is, she said a little incredulously. You remembered. I make it a point of remembering my friends' birthdays, he said kindly, a bubble of happiness bursting in his belly at her awestruck appearance. She looks so much brighter when she smiles. Hey, yeah, happy birthday Marinette, Nino said, leaning over to give her an excited thumbs up. We still on for pizza and pinball after school? Marinette nodded. Sorry again that I can't make it, Adrian said, dejected. I tried shuffling things around but I just couldn't free up this afternoon. Of course I can still. He smacked a hand to his forehead suddenly, startling Marinette. Oh my god, I totally left your present at home, Adrian hissed, flashing her a sheepish look as he gave himself a mental kick. Suffice to say he had been more than a bit distracted this morning, memories of the night before swirling around his head while he dressed for school. Adrian could picture her present, wrapped up nicely and stacked beside ladybugs in the corner of his room, and he cursed himself for being so forgetful. I guess I'll just have to bring it to you after lunch then. You didn't. I mean, and Marinette floundered for a moment, mouth opening and closing before she took a steadying breath. She raised her eyes to his, giving him a kind smile as she focused on pronouncing the words. I mean to say, you didn't need to get me anything, but I appreciate the fact you did. This time it was his turn to be a bit stunned, nodding at her eloquence as he returned her smile. Adrian didn't have time to ponder the erratic beating of his heart before the morning bell drew his attention towards the board. The morning block passed quickly, as did the first couple of afternoon periods. By the time Adrian walked into his last class of the day, he was in too good of a mood to dread the grueling photo shoot he had scheduled for after school, some big editorial session to showcase his father's fall/winter line. As he headed towards the French room, Adrian had to take great care not to skip. He got a special kind of thrill when giving gifts, a sort of high that came with knowing people appreciated his eye for presents. That's why he was always finding excuses to give. Hell, he had been tempted to give Aaliyah and Nino each a thanks for giving me the tips I needed to have a mind-blowing makeout session with my girlfriend present, but had decided that would be a bit trashy, not to mention disastrous. So of course when Adrian had heard Marinette's birthday was coming up, he wanted to make sure he found something special to gift the girl who had never been anything but gracious towards him. So he schemed and schemed until finally he was content with the basket he now plopped proudly atop their shared desk. Happy birthday, he announced, sliding in next to Marinette with a smile as the girl gasped at the parcel before her. Oh my gosh, Adrian, this is far too much, she wailed, hands fluttering around the tall, purple gift bag as she turned to him with raised brows. You haven't even opened it yet, he said, waving her off with a chuckle. She gave him a tentative smile, still looking a bit overwhelmed but diving in anyhow. Adrian's grin only grew wider with each new treasure she pulled out from between the white tissue paper. Marinette fawned over the fresh sketchpad, squeaked at the new gaming headphones, and was positively awestruck as she cracked open the leather portfolio, filled with old design concepts from long-forgotten Agreste seasonal lines. Now I can say with certainty this is far too much, she said, dazedly flipping through pages as she let her eyes roam over the illustrations. It really isn't, Adrian assured her. Nobody touches these things once the season is over, but I thought you might be able to get some use out of them. They're just and I'm. Marinette snapped the portfolio shut, whirling in her seat to throw her arms suddenly around him in an excited hug. Adrian was shocked for just a second before he squeezed her back, enjoying the warmth and gratitude of her embrace. Marinette smelled good, almost familiar even, and Adrian had to fight down the urge to keep her pressed against him when at last she pulled away. Thank you, really, she said, tucking a dark strand of blue-black hair behind her flushed ear as she gave him a shy smile. Don't mention it, Adrian responded earnestly, not quite able to tear his gaze from her pleased expression for the remainder of the period. Can you be at Notre Dame in 2 hours? Not unless you give me a good reason. Am I not reason enough? Is this just an excuse to sodomize me on top of a church? Absolutely not. I was planning on giving you a birthday gift. And then sodomizing you on top of a church. Yes, my birthday isn't for a few more days, you know. Still no reason I can't give you a gift early. I'm scared but also intrigued. I can be there in 3 hours. Deal? You're early. Chad turned at the sound of Ladybug's voice. He took a moment to enjoy the sight of her body, silhouetted by the setting sun, before bending down to kiss her hand. As are you, my lady, he murmured against the red material, twisting her arm to nip at the underside of her wrist. Adrian smiled as he heard her oh so quiet gasp, reveling in the fact he had so quickly managed to locate one of her sweet spots. Wonder where else she's tender. Ladybug twisted her face into forced seriousness as he trailed kisses up her arms. I was promised a present, she said, unable to completely hide her pleasure at the attention she was receiving. Who says this isn't your present? Chad replied cheekily, straightening up to his full height to lean in for a kiss. His girlfriend stopped him with a finger to the lips, pushing his face backwards as she craned her neck to peek around his back. If that's my present, then what's that in your hand? She made a quick grab at the parcel, very nearly nabbing it before he had the chance to hoist it high above his head. Patience. Chad tsked down at her, laughing as she gave a hop. Give, Ladybug demanded, running her hands down his chest in an effort to distract him. A very effective effort, Adrian thought, loving the way her fingernails dug slightly into his suit as she pulled his shoulders down. My, someone is handsy tonight, please. She tried, softening her voice as she drew her bottom lip between rounded teeth and looked up at him with sparkling eyes. It was an obviously fabricated gesture. He could still see the trickery behind her innocent guise, but it melted Adrian's resolve nonetheless. He gave a grin, lowering the box into her waiting hands. "Happy early birthday, my lady." She smirked, clutching the box to her chest as she turned to wander down the corridor. Tonight they were in a much more secluded corner of the cathedral, completely cut off from any prying eyes looking up from below. It was no surprise the media had worked itself into a tizzy. For the past 24 hours all anyone could seem to talk about was Ladybug and Chad Noir's apparent entanglement. And although Adrian couldn't help but be elated now everyone knew she was his, he could tell Ladybug was less than stoked about the attention. So out of deference to her feelings he didn't tease any further, indulging her desire to stay out of the limelight for a while. If anything, the inner parapets were just as lovely as the more exterior parts of the cathedral, with soaring buttresses and curving spandrels that created a private sort of walkway that stretched across the front of the church. It was on one of the low stone walls running between the cobbled arches that the two heroes sat, Ladybug settling across from him as she tucked one leg delicately under her. "This isn't going to be like a dead mouse or bird or something, is it?" she asked, picking at the red ribbon bound around the box with an arched brow. "No animals, living or otherwise. That's more of an anniversary thing," Chat responded with a laugh, leaning forward as she pulled the bow free. Ladybug lifted off the slim black lid, eyes fluttering down to read the logo on the business card nestled atop the white tissue paper inside. She gasped. "Oh my god, is this?" Adrian nodded, gaze heated as he took in the blush that feathered its way down her cheeks. Ladybug gave a shy smile and his stomach flipped. Was it possible his lady was abashed for once? "I thought it was a shame that such a pretty girl should have to leave behind her pretty things, so," here he cleared his throat, fighting down a bubble of shyness himself. "I did some online shopping." Ladybug lifted the paper, letting her fingers trail over the delicate lace of the cups that swelled from within the box. "You really shouldn't have done this," she breathed, voice a wondrous whisper as she pulled the bra out by its delicate three-stranded strap. Adrian felt a wave of panic at her words. Shit, was this too much? "Sorry." He gulped, drawing her eyes to his. "Sorry, if this makes you uncomfortable I can just no." She cut him off with a hurried smile, shaking her head. "This is incredible. I just meant it's really expensive, is all. It was no problem," Adrian said sincerely, silencing her objections with a wave of his hand. "Money's no issue when it comes to my lady's happiness." Then he grimaced as the haughtiness of his words sunk in. "Money's no issue. Way to sound like a tool." Ladybug didn't seem put off however. In fact, a slow smile stretched across her face as she turned the bra in her hands, a sight Adrian mentally filed away before she returned her gaze to him. "Well, in that case, where's my matching panties?" "So demanding, princess," Chad admonished, leaning forward to reach into the box still balanced on her lap. "If you just thought to look further," he gave her a wicked grin, drawing his hand up to reveal a black G-string dangling from the edge of one claw. Ladybug flushed further, eyes crossing to focus on the slip of fabric before her as she reached out to snatch it from his grasp. "Don't think I don't know what you're doing, kitty cat," she murmured, examining the piece carefully. "This is quite a bit skimpier than the pair I tried on. You know, I tried to find that one, but would you believe it? They were sold out." That was a lie. He'd found it just fine. But he also found this impossibly smaller one in the same line. And he'd be damned if it wasn't his job to ensure his girlfriend wore the least amount of fabric possible. "Why do I get the impression you're lying?" "Because I am." Ladybug gave a dramatic gasp, clutching her chest before placing her gifts gently back into the box with a laugh. "And on my birthday, of all days." Chat gave a scoff, still simmering at the memory of her clutching the tiny lingerie as he directed his attention forward. "You told me it wasn't for a few more days," he pointed out. "All right, you get off this time, yes please." "Yes, please. But only because I like my gift so much." Whatever words Adrian tried to conjure next died on his tongue, disappearing with a hard swallow as he watched her shift the package to the ground and lean her body towards him enticingly. Then by way of some divine retribution most likely meant to punish him for his less than pure thoughts, Ladybug gave him a downright sinful smile as she began crawling her way towards him. He couldn't move, trapped by her laser stare and unable to hear through his heartbeat as she crossed the few feet between them and settled into his lap with a content sigh. "No, wait. Not settling. Straddling," Adrian thought sluggishly, unable to conjure any higher brain power with the warm weight of her pressed against him. "Ladybug is straddling me, thank you, Chat," she said, low and sincere as she sat atop his thighs. "She's totally straddling me, holy shit." "Oh of course my lady," he choked out, tentatively placing his hands on her hips as he waited for some indication from her that he should remove them. It didn't come. Ladybug leaned in, licking her lips just a moment before they came into contact with his in an electric kiss. Adrian gave thanks for the 100th, no, millionth time that this was real. That she was real, and here, and right on top of him as he smiled into the embrace. His gloved hands ghosted up her sides as Ladybug slid her tongue alongside his. They wandered past her ribs and up under her armpits, lifting her biceps until her elbows were locked behind his neck in a close embrace. Ladybug's chest was now pressed firmly against his own, hips inching progressively closer towards the hard ridge jutting out from between his legs. Adrian groaned as she released his lips, puffing a hot breath against them before she made her way down to his neck. She paused for just a second, tilting her head in consideration before her blue eyes looked up imploringly. "Can I do something?" "Anything," Adrian replied instantly, not missing a beat as he allowed his hand to rove over her shoulder blades before settling against the small of her back. Curiosity burned alongside lust, finally spiraling into an inferno of arousal as Ladybug's slim fingers tugged at his bell, exposing about 4 more inches of skin as she slowly unzipped his costume. She wasted no time in exploring the new territory, letting her tongue and teeth go to work at his jutting collarbone. "That isn't the most holy of things to be doing atop a church, why no?" She silenced him with a harsh bite, Adrian hissing out a breath as she drew his skin tight between her teeth and then released it with a soothing press of her tongue. Neither is popping a boner, and yet, Ladybug let her eyes trail down to the bulge between them, looking back up with an innocent cock of her head. "Well, she's got you there, touche." He smirked, a wicked idea forming as she dipped back down to continue marking his neck. "But you know what's really unholy?" Ladybug made some sort of noncommittal noise, the sound vibrating across the exposed skin of his chest. Adrian let his hands wander further and lower than they had ever dare gone, deliberating for just a second before he firmly cupped her ass with a slight prick of his claws into the supple flesh there. "This is," he husked, smothering her moan with the slant of his lips against hers as she shuddered at the touch. For just a brief moment he felt in control, groping at her backside with glee as he exulted in the way she seemed to melt under his touch. Of course that was before Ladybug's hips snapped forward, bearing down harshly on his now throbbing erection in a move that sent stars spiraling across his vision. Adrian felt more than heard the girl chuckle, her chest rumbling against his as she very deliberately rolled her abdomen in another gut-clenching grind. "How's this for unholy?" she whispered, silencing his reply with another open-mouthed kiss. His body was on fire, set ablaze by the phenomenal amount of heat that seeped from between her thighs and permeated even the tough material of his suit. Adrian grew dizzy at the thought of how warm and wanting she'd be without the barrier, just soft skin and slick flesh sliding atop him before pressing back down in her need. "God, you don't know what you do to me," he ground out, gripping her ass tighter now as he coaxed her hips to press harder against him. "Yes, more. More heat, more pressure." "I think I have an idea," Ladybug responded a bit breathlessly, giving a soft cry as he angled his hips to meet her at a new angle. "There. Please, yes, chat there." Adrian was only too happy to oblige, letting out a groan of his own at the sound her using his name. The friction between them had reached a new level of intensity, and he wasn't sure how long he would be able to keep this up before, the feeling of her thighs squeezing his own as she clamped down for purchase. The now frantic way they rolled against each other, hips bucking to meet in an off-kilter dance of depravity. The downright lewd sounds spilling from Ladybug's throat as she nibbled his ear in ecstasy. He wanted so badly to just give up, to let her drive him over the edge of orgasm as he in turn allowed her to do the same, but the whispered threat of whatever punishment Plague would unleash upon him if he were to come in his suit trumped his overwhelming desire to come undone. Though just barely. "Saint, stop," Chat croaked out, pinning his hands on the side of her hips to bring their movement to a halt. "Fuck." Marinette was slow to react, thighs quivering as she willed herself to still atop him. She drew back to find Chat breathing heavily beneath her, hair impossibly more wild than usual and eyes screwed tightly shut. "Was that too much?" she whispered, scooting back regretfully as his hands slid from her to dig into the stone beneath them. "Not too much," he began, voice creaking and low. Marinette held in a gasp as his eyes slid upon, the pupils blown wide as he regarded her hungrily. "I just don't think my Kwame would. Appreciating me making a mess of my suit." "Oh, well, all right then," she thought, working up a blush at the thought that she had driven him so close. "Well, that's very considerate of you," Ladybug responded slowly, lowering herself onto their bench as Chat shifted beneath her. She settled into a crossed position between his splayed-out legs, the two of them focusing on catching their collective breaths as she tried to wind down from her tightly coiled state. Chat's eyes had lulled shut once again, and Marinette took the opportunity to shamelessly check him out. "Because that will definitely help me cool off," she thought sarcastically, allowing her gaze to wander nonetheless. He really was quite handsome, and Marinette let a little thrill of triumph run through her at the fact that she had managed to snag the affections of such an attractive if utterly annoying boy. Chat was the picture of a fallen angel, from his crown of golden hair to the sharp cut of his jaw. He had clear, tanned skin as far the eye could see at this point, just his face and the strip of collarbone she had exposed, white teeth, great lips, really, really great lips. And of course his physique was A+, the years of running across rooftops equipping him with a fair amount of lean muscle along his once gangly limbs. Marinette grinned in appreciation, letting her gaze trace down his torso to land on. Chat's eyes snapped open at her strangled sound, yet hers remained glued to the leather-bound bulge sticking out from under his belt. Or more specifically, the streak of moisture glinting off of it in the dying light of the evening. "What's wrong?" her boyfriend asked, his confusion evident as a furiously blushing Marinette brought a hand up to cover her gaping mouth. He let his gaze follow hers, staring down at his lap with a quirk of his eyebrow before he too seemed to notice the spot. It took a second, she could see the gears turning in his head, but Chat finally seemed to do the math. His costume was smooth, airtight. Hers was breathable and porous. Therefore, there was no way the moisture was from him, and that meant. "Shit," Marinette squeaked at about the same time Chat let out another groan, balling his fists up tighter as he bore down on her with a wide-eyed stare. "Shit, shit, shit, I'm sorry, oh god. I didn't think I was wet enough to fuck. Please don't be mad. Please just let the earth swallow me up. Right, now. I willingly surrender my useless vessel to the void." "Not mad," he ground out, gaze flickering back down to his erection before settling at the juncture of her tightly pressed legs. "Just trying not to come here." It was at this point his eyes grew impossibly wider, a thought seeming to occur to him as he brought his incredulous stare down upon her flushed face. "Wait, did you? Did I?" Marinette stuttered out, not catching his meaning until Chat gestured to her pelvis. With a blush of his own. Oh, no. Please tell me this isn't happening." "No, I didn't. I mean, not that I wasn't close or anything. I definitely wanted to. Shit, that's not, I just." She was definitely rambling by this point, hoping an excess of words would make up for a lack of excuses as she scrambled to find the right way to articulate her point. Meanwhile Chat had hunched over, still staring at her with a glassed-over expression as his breath came in small huffs. "I just mean, you probably would have been able to tell if I had come because I tend to be pretty loud, fuck, ladybug, and that's probably not helping you right now, so I'm just going to stop talking." Marinette scooted back against the opposite arch, burying her head against her knees as she concentrated on not throwing herself off the side of the building. She was silent for about half a minute before speaking out in a small voice. "I can go, if that will help." Chat shook his head with a shuddering breath, blinking slowly until his eyes seemed to snap back into focus. He rolled his shoulders, giving a long exhale as he regarded her. "No, you don't need to leave. I think I'm good now. How about you?" Marinette glanced at him over the tops of her knees, feeling the heat slowly ease off her face even as the untamable fire raged on deep down in her stomach. "I'm fine. And again, really sorry." Chat shook his head, a ghost of smile spreading across his mouth. "You don't ever have to apologize to me for getting turned on, my lady," he began, cocking an eyebrow suggestively. "Especially if I'm the one doing the turning." His wink was all Marinette needed to let go of the remainder of her embarrassment, rolling her eyes at his all-too-smug expression. "Yeah, I guess," she mumbled, dropping her knees as she avoided his gaze. "So I'd like to revisit that comment about you being loud. Nope. Not on your life, Chat on. Because it just makes me wonder hhhmmmmmmmmmm." Marinette made a drawn-out sound of displeasure, clapping her hands over her ears in a show of not listening as Chat gave a full-bellied laugh. She stood abruptly, legs buckling under her as her boyfriend looked on with triumphant. "You sure you'll be able to make it home all right?" he said, gesturing to the way she wobbled over to retrieve her gift. Ladybug just glowered, righting herself before turning back to address him. "I'll be fine. Besides, I'm not the one with 3 whole inches, okay? Ouch. Of hardness to get in my way as I drag myself back home." "Whatever," Chat said, stretching as he stood up to pad his way over to her. "Just try not to slip in any puddles on your way." Marinette scrunched up her nose, about to reply with another retort when he cut her off with another question. "Are you going to wear it tonight?" His voice was low, hopeful. "I was planning on just going straight to sleep tonight," she replied truthfully, clutching her gift a bit tighter as she remembered the contents. "No reason you can't wear it to bed," he suggested, taking a moment to mull something over before bending down to press a quick kiss to her lips, pulling back before it got too heated. "And why would I do that?" Marinette murmured, cocking her head up in a challenge. "Because you like my present," Chat suggested, earning a noncommittal hum. "Or perhaps because knowing you have it on will most definitely help things along when I get home." Marinette shuddered at his insinuation, knowing exactly what he wanted help with if his ever-present erection was any indication. Well, I still say it's too uncomfortable to sleep in, she began, reaching up to re-zip his costume as she admired the tiny purple marks she left scattered across his chest. In fact, I prefer to wear nothing at all in bed. Better to feel the sheets that way. That should help him plenty, she thought smugly, keeping her face passive as she rung the bell around his throat. You are evil, Chad drawled darkly, reaching out as she twirled away from his seeking hands. And very, very tired. Sweet dreams, Chad, and thanks for the present. She had to fight down the urge to laugh as he gave a frustrated growl, shooting her boyfriend one last wink before leaping down to run her way to the other end of the cathedral. Despite the fact she could see her balcony from Notre Dame, Marinette made sure to trek a winding route around the surrounding blocks in order to discourage followers paparazzi and feline alike. The cool evening air was a blessing as she swung her way around Paris, helping to smother but not fully extinguish the roiling heat that radiated from between her thighs. In fact, Marinette elected to go around her trail twice, hoping the exertion would somewhat soothe her ardor. When she did finally make it back to her room, however, she wasted no time in dropping her transformation and retrieving her presents from their tissue wrappings. The lingerie was, without a doubt, one of the best gifts she had received today, along with Adrian's portfolio and Aaliyah's extensive scrapbook. She marveled again at the construction before shedding her clothes and trying it on. The bra fit perfectly, and Marinette was stuck between being impressed and weirded out by the fact Chat must have looked real close at the picture she had sent him in order to make out what size the label dictated. And of course there was no real explanation as to why the panties were the perfect size as well, other than sheer luck and the hours he spent checking out her ass. But despite his rather questionable knowledge of her body, Marinette still felt a swell of appreciation at Chat's thoughtful gift, as well as a bit of guilt at the inevitable price tag. How long had he been saving up to afford this? I know he has a part-time job, but it can't really bring in that much money, she shook the thoughts free, recalling the way he had waved off her concern with the assurance that it wasn't an issue. And after catching a glimpse of herself in the full-length mirror, Marinette couldn't find it in herself to be guilty, instead admiring the way the pieces wrapped around her body like they were made for her alone. She felt powerful and wanted, not at all minding the appearance of her stretch marks as they poked out from behind delicate strands of black lace. Marinette turned, examining each corner of her body and for once not finding anything to beat herself up over. Sexy, she thought with a gleam in her eye. This is what it's like to feel sexy. And with that revelation, a scheme planted itself in her mind, prompting Marinette to replace her bra with a tank top. Okay, so maybe she didn't sleep fully naked, sue her before climbing her way into bed. She sat cross-legged at the end, ignoring her lingering prickles of arousal as she grabbed at her phone. Plenty of time to take care of that later, she reminded herself, thinking past the wetness now pressed against her his new panties in order to focus on her mission. Marinette's message was quick and concise. I'm ready to hear the gospel. Aaliyah's reply was practically instantaneous. Girl, I thought you'd never ask. Chapter and notes. PS. Here's the link to the bra. http://d36udom9g1on9r.cloudfront.net/store/media/catalog/product/x/2/x2101298bbblk3.jpg and also super sexy fan art. http://bullysquadess.tumblr.com/post/1381223098777/not safe for Huffy. Bullysquadess wrote the